to do my top 10 list of my favorite directors personally to me. Obviously, I don't think this is some sort of objective list. These are just directors that their films and their style has impacted me the most, and I appreciate them the most. And so there might be directors who you might think, why aren't they on here? Why aren't they? To me, I want to pick a list of directors I'm comfortable with their filmography. I've either seen a vast majority of it or all of it. And so I know these directors inside and out. I don't really want to. There's directors I really respect. Michael Haneke is one of them who I've only seen a handful of his films. I haven't seen all of his work. I would love to put him on this list because he's blown me away with his film. For me, I have to see a lot more of his filmography to really be comfortable putting him on my personal list of favorite directors. So these might be more of a, I don't know, tad bit basic of choices, but these are directors that their films have impacted me the most, and I really appreciate their work. Alright, so starting the top of the list is Terry Gilliam. I don't actually own any of... Actually, I do. Wait a minute. I actually do own two of his films on DVD. I do want to... the ones I really want to get are his Criterion of Brazil and Fear and Loathing. I thought those were absolutely amazing. Probably, out of all the directors on this list, I haven't seen all of his work. I've seen a good majority of his work and all of his highly praised works. But I haven't seen all of it. So look how strange. I get that it's like a Johnny Depp pack. I only wanted it because I wanted Crybaby. I want the commentary. But what a strange list. All of these are such different films from Johnny Depp. I guess just because Universal had the rights to these. But very strange release. I'm hoping to get rid of this as soon as I get the Fear and Loathing Criterion. I'll definitely check this out the window. I'll donate it. But I just highly respect his work. The amount of effort that he puts into his productions. I love the imagination with his character designs, the way he shoots it, the way he lights it. A lot of, especially his earlier work, is very practical and super impressive. And a lot of his films didn't really have huge budgets. He was able to do so much with such little budgets. And for me, Brazil is one of those great films. To me, I'm not going to pretend like I think it's a perfect film or I got everything or I know everything about it. I've only seen it once, but to me, that's a film I can't wait to keep going back to keep getting more from it. It was absolutely amazing. Blew me away. Such a great Christmas film. But overall, I would highly recommend this film. And also this film right here, Time Bandits, I thought was absolutely excellent. I only watched this a few weeks ago. But this is like a film I was pissed I didn't see it as a kid because this is such a well done kids movie. It's scary at times. It has such a good story, such good character, great acting, and just a lot of it just creates a really fun universe. It's really hilarious. The villain I absolutely loved. I think his name is just Super Evil or the Evil One or something. It's just hilarious. Absolutely great. Such a good ending. And Terry Gilliam, I respect the hell out of you. Alright, next on the list is a film that you were annoyingly harassed about at the party, and that is going to be Quentin Tarantino. I really enjoy his work. I don't glaze him like I think so much of the internet does or film bros do. But to me, I think his work is absolutely amazing. He seems to be one of the best of the 90s. The 90s was such a great decade for film, and he came out of it, to me, really looking good, although his 2000s wasn't great, except for this. This is, for me, the reason I love this double pack, even though it has nothing on this. This Blu-ray sucks, because there's absolutely no special feature. Might have subtitles, I don't even remember. But no, to me, Kill Bill was this is his magnum opus. He used everything that he loves and borrows from works, and I just thought this was such an amazing film. This is really where I was okay, I think this is one of the great directors, but there is some work I'm not the biggest fan of. To me, Reservoir Dogs is amazing, super, not underrated, but I think I like that film a lot more than Pulp Fiction, but also a film, to me, I really adore, and I know it's kind of a controversial film in his list, or his filmography, and that's Death Proof. I love this film. Maybe it was because I was coming off a shrooms trip, and I put this on, and I just fell in love with it. I just really enjoyed it. But I thought also I've never had such a guttural laugh like I did in the middle of this film. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but it is absolutely amazing in so many ways. And I think the problem with this film is the second half of the film, for me, it kind of becomes like a Fast and Furious. It's just a chase film, which is kind of kind of lost me there. But the opening of this film was absolutely amazing. That first half, the universe they created, just so much of it, the art direction, everything about it was so good. And for that, I really respect his work and want to put him on there. Next on this list is a director who I wouldn't say I fell out of. I still really like his work, but I think I kind of really overhyped him. Or when I was really getting into film, I thought he was, to me, doing stuff that I didn't see anyone else was doing. But I kind of realized the more I've gotten to watch more films and stuff like that, I don't think his work is as mind-blowing as it once was for me. But we're going to talk about David Fincher. I absolutely adore some of his works. These are to me his two best works, especially The Social Network. I think this is a 5-star film. This is an amazing film, perfect all the way through. This is also another great film about the media and how corrupt it is, and just how quickly it is to make assumptions with lack of information. But overall, I've really got, whenever I found this work, the first one I saw is, I think what most people saw first was Fight Club. And that was a film that, for the time, I still enjoyed Fight Club. I think it's an alright film now. But at the time, it's like, this is better than sex. It was like, for a time, I thought it was the best movie ever, and it was my favorite film forever. To me, I don't know if it would be on my top 50 list now. I just seen better films than that. But to me, that was one thing that was kind of the way I got into it. And for what I've seen, he seems to be one of the more mainstream directors who has a really strong attention to detail, he's very dedicated to his craft. He's very dedicated to the films he produces and makes. And so I really respect it. Just for me, my taste, I feel like, has grown from a lot of his work. Not saying they're bad. I think he has a lot of great films. And there's still a few that that I still have yet to see. But for me, the impact that he made on me early on into getting into films, and some films that I'll continue to watch every year or so, this to me is like my go-to sick film. If I'm ever sick, I'm not feeling great, this is a film I put on, and I don't know, it's like medicine for me. And so I just highly respect the impact that he's made on me. But I would say I'm not going to go to bat with his filmography and act like it's perfect. Next on the list is another excellent filmmaker, and that is going to be the GOAT himself, Martin Scorsese. Let's go. Let's get into this. Martin Scorsese is, I would say, arguably, for me, the most inspirational directors that I've seen recently. I didn't really watch much of his work when I was younger because it's quite adult. A lot of his films. I did see like Hugo when I was young, and there were some of those like early crossover films, but it wasn't until I became an adult. Whenever you start to watch his films, you're like, this guy knows how to make a great film. This guy knows how to craft a good story. He knows how to cast a good crew of actors. And for me, the biggest one is obviously Goodfellas. This DVD cover or Blu-ray cover sucks. Look how lame this is. This is like a Mafia in the Bronx or whatever that stupid film is. But Martin Scorsese, an absolute legend in film, someone who's done so much for American filmmaking, especially in the 70s and especially in the 80s. To me, one of my favorite of his works is going to be The Last Waltz. I love this film. This is my favorite concert film of all time. It is excellent. It's a fucking amazing... It's like probably one of the most amazing live shows ever, of all time, that is filmed by the guy who made The Godfather. Like, why isn't that... That makes it the perfect fucking concert film. And then the last would be, for me, for a long time, I've really struggled to get through long movies. I did not find long movies. I found it just quite hard. I would usually maybe watch them in parts or something like that. But over the past few years, I've gotten better. I've gotten better stamina to watch these long films. And I would say one of the best is got to be The Wolf of Wall Street, a film that makes like 3 hours feel like an hour and 20 minutes. It feels like a drug trip, this whole movie, just how fast it goes, but also at the same time there's so much in it. Just such a fucking good movie. And sadly, idiots think that this is something to aspire for. But nevertheless, a great film, a great filmmaker, Martin Scorsese. Alright, the next director on this list I'd say would be arguably the reason why I got into more artsy films, or kind of found that more compelling than studio schlock that comes out, and that would be Wes Anderson. For me, I think his work is absolutely spectacular. I only own 2 Blu-rays of his work. I own most of them on DVD over there. But I just think this guy is absolutely amazing. Discovered him probably when I was around like 14. I knew him from Fantastic Mr. Fox. but so much of his work is just so fucking well done. It is such good attention to detail. The art direction, to me, might be my favorite art direction of any of these directors on this list. Attention to costumes, to the cinematography, his attention to the costumes, everything about this guy's work, it's just so well done. I know he gets a lot of criticism for kind of being samey in his work. I don't give a shit. To me, his filmography is one of the most impressive filmographies. One of his films is actually on my top 4 list, and that is The Grand Budapest Hotel. I just got this Blu-ray in the other day, and I watched it last night, and still is just fucking spectacular. I want to make a video on this. This is a film, though. I have a lot to say on it, and so I don't want to just kind of do a quickie review on that. I want to actually spend some time, do some stuff about it. But his work is just so well done. So much of his movies just absolutely touch me in the heart. They are so amazing to look at, and I think it's great that it's accessible art. I think a lot of people, you could put on one of his films, they're not gonna be like, oh, it's a fucking art film, whatever. They're actually, I think, gonna be compelled by it, interested in it, and be like, this is actually fucking amazing. And love his work, was so impactful on me. Next on this list is technically 2 guys, but I think everyone kind of groups them in together. Earlier work was actually separated, where they would one would get the directing credit, but they are a duo director group, and so that is going to be the Coen brothers. To me, the Coen brothers are the best American filmmakers. Especially, they are, to me, the most spectacular, capturing Americana, like Miller's Crossing, which take on the mafia and gangsters. Raising Arizona, which I think really depicts the South amazingly. There's Barton Fink. There's a Big Lebowski, which depicts late Southern California culture. Fargo, which captures Minnesota culture, and everyone kind of looks at it as the unofficial Canadian movie of their work. But they are just such a spectacular crew that when they write about any of these different facets or areas in America, they just completely capture them. They create some of the greatest characters ever brought to film. Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, Fargo, and then The Big Lebowski. All in a row. And also before they have Blood Simple, which is an amazing fucking crime movie. They are so good. They are brilliant directors. They are brilliant writers. So much of their work is so well done and incredible. I haven't seen much of, I would say, of their really contemporary work. Their filmography is so fucking respectable. Alright, next on the list is a director. It's probably the reason why I don't just completely write off the state of New Jersey. And that is going to be Kevin Smith. What a guy. I know there's a lot of criticism and a lot of people don't enjoy his work or think he's a hack or whatever. I don't get that. I absolutely adore most of his work. I'm not going to pretend all of it's perfect, and he wouldn't even pretend all of it's perfect. But he has some of the most impressive 90s films, especially some of the most, also probably the most influential and impressive independent film of all time with Clerks. And he's just a guy that I watched at a time when I wasn't watching many of his movies, and I did grow up with a few of his films. But whenever I did finally start seeing some of his movies, I was just like, this guy, to me, he just captures what I enjoy. He's able to capture, I think, nerd culture really well, even though I think sometimes it can come off a little bit pandering-ish. But his work has just impacted me so much. I adore it. My favorite film of all time. Mallrats is just a film that I watched at a very important, I think it might have been 9th grade when I seen it for the first time. And I was just like, this film is hilarious. And I know this is a work that people don't like, or people at the time it was heavily criticized as like, all right, don't give this indie guy from New Jersey money because he'll fuck up with a studio film. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I love all the characters. I love so many of his work. I also like that there's kind of a continuity in between his work. Also, Chasing Amy, I think, is an excellent film, especially for its time. It was a really kind of an interesting idea and compelling. And also, I'd say Dogma is probably one of my favorite religious satires. I really want to get the Blu-ray someday. but I know it's pretty skewed for its printing. I think it had to do with that dickhead Harvey Weinstein. But I absolutely just adore all of his work. I love his writing. I love his characters. He isn't that impressive filmmaking wise. He has some fun stuff here and there. But even he'll say that, like, his work isn't that flashy. He has a lot of stable shots. He's not going to really do anything that's going to, like, be like, what are they doing with this camera? It's pretty standardized stuff. But to me, it's his writing that reflects through his work, his heart through his work, and stories that he's told. I think it's absolutely spectacular, and what he's done for independent filmmaking is quite impressive. All right, so it's been a few hours since I filmed. That's probably why it looks a little bit darker in here. But I forgot to include someone on the list. I'm always terrible for doing that. And the person I forgot to talk about was Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick, I would say, is one of those filmmakers who I don't really know what I can say more. I think everything that has been said is true, or I agree with them, and I think all of his work is just spectacular. His style bleeds through. His style and influence on modern filmmaking, his influence on so many filmmakers. He is just one of those impressive legends, one of the greats. And like for a long time, like I seen The Shining and stuff like that, and I loved The Shining. I thought it was a spectacular horror film. And but I didn't really watch his work. I just always knew about it and respected it, and just always thought he was great. But the past year, I really went deeper into his work. Obviously, all of these films are absolutely spectacular. All of these are genius. I'm still waiting. I have 2 of these on 4K. I'm still waiting to get 2001 on 4K. But absolutely spectacular. The greatest sci-fi film, one of the greatest horror films, one of the greatest like psychological thrillers. Also, these are both my criterion that I was able to give him. Barry Lyndon, Paths of Glory, both spectacular films. Barry Lyndon might be now one of my favorite 3-hour-long films, and Paths of Glory might be one of my favorite war films. Just both spectacular work, and his other work, The Killing, and so many other stuff. I still have a few that I got to get to. Leota is one of that I really want to see. But all of his work is just spectacular, amazing. But his craft and his attention to detail in this film is just absolutely amazing. All of his work should be looked at, should be appreciated, and should be studied. Alright, the next director on this list is someone who I've only started to watch his work from last year. And so it to me that just shows the impact that he has made. That some of these guys, I've been watching their films for almost my whole life. A lot of them, or at least most of like my teenage to adult life, I've seen a lot of their work. This is a guy I only discovered and learned about last year, and that's going to be Alejandro Jodorowsky. What a fucking guy. What a fucking god, in my opinion. I know, sadly, I wish I owned more of his work. It is so bloody expensive to collect a lot of his films. Sadly, they're not very highly printed. I think there's only a few. I believe, actually, it's in the mail. It's coming, I think, at the end of this month. And I definitely will do a video on it. And that is going to be the Santa Sangre 4K box set that I got. I'm really excited for that. I got a decent deal on it. It was pricey, obviously, but I got a good deal on it. So I really want to do a review on that and review the film. That's probably my second favorite. I'd say this is definitely my favorite of his works. This is one of my top films now. I've seen this 4.5 times just in the last year. And I don't do that with film. I know some people are autistic that way with films and will continue to watch and watch and watch. I'm not like that. I find if I watch something too much, I'll get tired of it. This film, I'm not gotten tired of it. I still absolutely adore it. Can't wait to watch it more. I really hope. I think I was searching once, but I really hope they make a 4K this film. It would be to me, a worth it film. It would look spectacular. But let me get into. I don't need to review a whole amount. Let me get into his work, and his filmography is arguably perfect. The only one I have not seen is Tusk. I'm going to see it. I'm going to see it. I'll probably do a retrospection on all of his work because I think all of it is just so bloody good. His style, he has cliches and stuff. I know, crippled people and naked children, not in an exploitative way. Arguably, not in an exploitative way. And yeah, so he has a lot of quirks. He has a lot of interesting things. But his work is just like all of it. It feels spiritual, and just the way that when you watch it, he also continued to have a great career. I know he's still alive, He's still kicking. 95 years old. And he had made films up until a few years ago, and they were fucking amazing. The Dance of Reality, Endless Poetry were absolutely great works. They're semi-biographical. They starred a lot of his children. Also, Jodorowsky's Dune is like one of those films where you're like, I don't know what it leaves you with, almost like blue balls at the end of that documentary, because you're like, why didn't this fucking exist? He would have been the guy out of all visionary filmmakers. He would have been the one to really show how to capture Dune. And I'm not gonna claim I haven't read the books. I haven't actually even seen the new Dune movies. But from what everyone I've heard who've read Dune or talks about Dune, it's a very, very hard work to adapt into film. But I think he would be the guy that would, if he was given that budget, was given that chance to do it. Oh my god, that to me probably would be one of the greatest films of all time. But nevertheless, I highly recommend all of his work, all of his films throughout. The only film I would say that I've seen that I was kind of like, it didn't really work for me. That didn't work. I'd say it was his earliest film, which is Fandom and Lies. I thought this just felt like a very dated, like, hippie movie. It really had comparably to a lot of his work. He has some of the best background and location shootings out of any director. And I know I get this was a black and white film, but it was the ugliest background. There was like this really rocky, mountainous area or hilly area. It wasn't right. I wouldn't even say mountains. And it just didn't. I just felt like I was like, this is crap that your grandmother at the time would have been blown away about after ingesting enough LSD and pot for it to make sense. So it was, for me, that was his most lackluster film. It was obviously his first film, but to me his first magnum opus was El Topo, which you can't argue is not an amazing film. So I just love this guy. Continue to respect his work. Continue to check out his work year after year after year. And his ideas and philosophy around life and spirituality is just really compelling, even though I don't agree with a lot of it or believe a lot of it. I think also, too, you can just still respect that a guy is this smart and this well-renowned and also has those beliefs. So I find him a very interesting, compelling guy. All right, and finally is going to be, and I don't know, this could be just a recent obsession or whatever. I don't know. But I am going to give it to the man. I just can't stop learning more about him. I can't stop researching stuff about him. And I can't wait to talk more about his work later on this channel. And that is John fucking Waters. What a man. What a legend. I think there's so much of this guy. It just rings true to me. I think... Firstly, I think all of his films have to really do with rebelling against authority, with rebelling against square society or high society, and essentially taking a shit on it. That's what John Waters is great at. I think there's so many quotes. I think one of his quotes I heard on one of his documentaries was a hatred of authority and a good sense of humor. And I think that's exactly what all of his works are. I think I see so much, and not me throughout it, but I think my philosophy on some, I'm someone who hates authority. I'm somewhat of an anarchist, even I think politically I think it's a very stupid position to have, but I'm an anarchist in the times that we are in. I find so much of his work just so well done, and for me, I think one of the hardest genres to nail, and it doesn't really seem that way because it seems like they've shit out 10 million of them, but it's comedy. Comedy is a very, very hard genre to nail. I think in a lot of ways it's easier to make someone cry. You can like a 30-second ad can make you cry. Remember those like sad dying dog ads? Well, those would make you fucking cry. But to me, it's pretty easy to do that. You're just showing something very sad, showing emotional music that's going to manipulate you. So I find that's very easy to do. And I'm not saying for some films it can make you cry and it's beautiful and it was really well done, but it's also really an easier crutch than you would think it is to make someone laugh. Laughing is a lot of times can be very difficult, especially when you're making a movie where you don't know exactly the humor of the people coming into it, if it's going to mix well or do well across the country. Like maybe a joke that'll be really funny in New York will not land in Wichita, Kansas. But for me, I think all of his comedy films are absolutely hilarious, so well done, so well written. I instantly went out and watched all of his works after seeing uh, Pink Flamingos, of course, which is The Way You Lose Your John Waters' Virginity. Just so much of his work. Serial Mom is, to me, one of the most impressive studio films by someone who was not meant to be in the studio system. John Waters, I know he did grow a lot more of appreciation and understanding for studio, even though he still had a lot of criticism and hatred of them. This is so fucking well done. It keeps to his style, keeps to his writing, but also has almost a very contemporary mainstream feel to it. I think that is hilarious. Crybaby, an excellent film, taking very young and like up and coming Johnny Depp out of his comfort zone, creating almost this Grease-like comedy. Very good music. Pink Flamingos, Female Troubles, I would say is an okay Divine film, like his work with Divine. I think it's one of the okay ones, but so hilarious. I love the director's commentary. He's also one of the few directors that I'm interested in what the fuck he has to actually say. A lot of directors, they can just be over pretentious or whatever, but he is just someone that I continue to love and continue to want to learn more about him. The Odorama, what director comes up with the Odorama? John Waters is who. And I recommend, if you haven't seen any of his films, I recommend going out and seeing them. They're just so well done and incredible. I think this would be his last film that he made. And I'm reading his book, Car Sick, and I think that's hilarious and amazing and kept to a lot of his style, even in a different style of art. So overall, that is my list of filmmakers. This could change. I'm not gonna say this is a definitive list. I think if I did this list 5 years ago, we'd be completely different, or it probably have some crossover, but it'd be people who I probably would give more praise to that now I might see is not as impressive to me or anymore. So this is my current list, and I thank you guys so much for sticking through, watching this video. Appreciate you guys so much. Check you out.